Hi, my dear readers. This is Simona Rich. In this video, I'm going to read out some of the other quotes that I noted from the Nisargadatta Maharaj's book, I Am That. Now the quote on why focusing on the I Am liberates. The very fact of observation alters the observer and the observed. After all, what prevents the insight into one's true nature is the weakness and obtuseness of the mind and its tendency to skip the subtle and focus on the gross only. When you follow my advice and try to keep your mind on the notion of I am only, you become fully aware of your mind and its vagaries. Awareness, being lucid harmony in action, dissolves dullness and quietness and quietens the restlessness of the mind and gently but steadily changes its very nature, its very substance. This change need not be spectacular, it may be hardly noticeable, yet it's a deep and fundamental shift from darkness to light, from inadvertence to awareness. So when you start observing the mind, practicing practicing mindfulness, you will notice that the mind is very inconsistent and it's insane. It starts thinking about things without relation to anything else. Just suddenly it starts thinking about something, and you know it's not your thoughts. You just get them, and then there are moments when there is no awareness. There is just so many gaps. But people who don't watch their minds, they will miss that completely. They will never know it. But once you start observing the mind, you understand how insane and inconsistent it actually is. And Nisargadatta Maharaj explains that if you focus on the I am, just getting deep into yourself, then you, through this awareness, you purify the mind, because it tends to focus on things that are obvious, like thoughts, and or like this reality, of course, and misses what's actually the observer, what's using the mind. To rise in consciousness from one dimension to another, you need help. The help may not always come in the shape of a human person. It may be a subtle presence, a spark of intuition, but help must come. The inner self is watching and waiting for the son to return to his father. At the right time, he arranges everything affectionately and effectively. Where a messenger is needed or a guide, he sends the guru to do the needful. So many people wait for some human guru, and it's actually a very dangerous thing in these times, because there are so many fake gurus and millions of people follow the gurus that are the most fake. Unfortunately, they have no spiritual discernment. So here Nisargadatta Maharaj explains that there is no need of a human guru. Maybe you will not get any human guru unless it's necessary. Life itself will teach you. If you listen to your intuition, if you're open to life, life itself on a daily basis teaches you. It's your guru. Because of the imperfections of the mind, its crudity and restlessness, lack of discernment and insight, it takes itself to be the body, not the self. All that is needed is to purify the mind so that it can realize its identity with the self. When the mind merges in the self, the body presents no problems. It remains what it is, an instrument of cognition and action, the tool and the expression of the creative fire within. So, although when you dwell in the gaps between your thoughts, you think nothing is happening, but actually a lot is going on. The mind is getting purified, and the mind is so tainted, so it takes time. But do not get bored between the gaps of thought. This is really what's helping the mind to get purified. And also in the talks, during the talks of Nisargadatta Maharaj, people sometimes express their fear. What happens if I kind of kill the mind, lose the mind? And then what will take care of the body? But actually, when the mind is totally purified, it's like a mirror, and the body takes the right actions for itself. But if the mind is tainted, it will have negative habits, and then actually it harms the body. So this is definitely shouldn't be something to be concerned about. How to treat pain and pleasure. Accept both as they come, enjoy both while they last, let them go as they must. It's written as they must. I like this advice because in Buddhism, for example, it's told to always avoid pleasure, always avoid anything that the worldly people do. But actually, I like this advice much more because it's much more natural. If pleasure comes, no need to shun it, because then you are actually putting so much energy to push it away. If it comes, then enjoy it. If pain comes, also enjoy it, because worldly people run towards pleasure and run away from pain, and that's what keeps them trapped in Maya. But accept everything that comes to you. Just watch what they are, watch their nature. Don't try to push them away. The body knows its measure, but the mind doesn't. Its appetites are numberless and limitless. Watch your mind with great diligence, for there lies your bondage and also the key to freedom. I love this quote. It's so true. The body is not at fault, it's the mind that at fault. The body is just normally functioning, but the mind prevents it from normal functioning, because the mind, if you're not mindful, then the mind remains insane. So it's the one that's urging body to overeat, to overdo things, to get into bad habits. But the body itself is just natural part of nature. It's the part of nature. It will do everything naturally. It's the mind that hinders it. So through mindfulness, we purify the mind, and then the body is not hindered. Life itself is desireless, but the false self wants to continue pleasantly. Therefore, it's always engaged in ensuring one's continuity. Life is unafraid and free. As long as you have the idea of influencing events, liberation is not for you. The very notion of doership, of being a cause, is bondage. Again, beautiful, beautiful paragraph, beautiful quote. That the self always tries to ensure one's continuity because it's false. That's what clings to life, the false self. We don't need to cling to life because we are life already. But the false self, it knows that it has an end, and therefore it clings to life. And because we are identified with it, we think that we are clinging to life. So when I was drowning, for example, in the river Ganges, I knew I'm detached observer watching body fighting for its life. But I wasn't that. I was totally separated from that. I was like stuck in the head watching everything. It was so amazing. So us, the observer, we are not, we are forever. We don't cling to life. But since we are focused on this body, this self, this personality, and we think us to be that, we think that we cling to life, but it's not the case. Where the sense of equality is lacking, it means that reality has not been touched. Again, beautiful quote, because it's so true. If people react, like if they see large amount of money, for example, and they straight away change, if they come across something expensive on the street line, and the mind suddenly changes, it becomes so happy or something, that means the person is still stuck in the illusion. But when you start touching who you really are, getting to your real self, everything starts looking like the illusion. You don't differentiate. You don't treat, for example, wealthy people in one way and people below you in another way. Just everything becomes the same part of illusion. And then you know that when you start treating these things in this way, that you have touched on the real. Surely, when you are hungry, you need food, and when sick, you need medicine. This is the question, and the answer that Maharaj gave was, hunger brings the food and illness brings the medicine. It's all nature's work. Again, if we don't interfere, we are provided for. Like Jesus said, don't worry what will happen tomorrow, today is enough. And it's true, we are always fed, but some people are very worried about that. So some flies here, and until they get money, for example, they are so worried, so they wear themselves out, whilst those who are aware, those who are truly spiritual, they don't worry about that, because they will get supplied, and they do. How does one reach the supreme state? By renouncing all lesser desires. As long as you are pleased with the lesser, you cannot have the highest. So, because the mind likes to grab on to the gross, it will totally miss the real. If you have any kind of desires of the world, the only desire when it's left, when the only desire that you have is to know the self, when truly you have this only one desire, then this will happen and you will know the self. And selfish action, free from all concern with the body and its interests, will carry you into the very heart of reality. Basically, if you take selfish action, it means you're identified with the body. If you take action based on your body's needs, for example, you still are identified with the illusion. But when you start taking unselfish action, not based on the needs of the body, that's when things will start changing, because you're no longer basing your reality on illusion, but on what is real. This I am idea was not born with you. You could have lived very well without it. How true that is. When I remember one of the earliest memories that I have, I wasn't even able to walk. I remember I was crawling and I was seeing the world with such interest, and everything was fresh and other people were so interesting. I remember looking at the neighbor boy with light hair, and he had curly hair, and I found it so beautiful, and I wasn't aware of myself. I was just awareness. It came later, this I am idea, due to your self-identification with the body. And it's also to do with parents. I remember, for example, when I was also very small, and my mom and dad would say, "What's your name?" And I didn't know. And they said, "Your name is Simona." So people teach you, parents teach you who you are, and then you become kind of aware and you think, "Oh, I am the body." It created an illusion of separation where there was none. The sense of I am created the illusion of separation. Before this awareness arose that I am the body, there was no separation between the body and the world. You were actually not aware of the body. The body was the tool to sense the world, that's all. It made you a stranger in your own world and made the world alien and inimical. Whilst before you're just part of the world, and actually when, like Nisargadatta Maharaj explains, when you wake up, then you know that the world is in you. But when you think yourself to be the body, then straight away the world is as though an enemy, something unknown and dangerous. There are moments when we are without the sense of I am, at peace and happy. With the return of the I am, trouble starts. To be free of the I sense. Watch it in operation and at peace, how it starts and when it ceases, what it wants and how it gets it, till you see clearly and understand fully what the I really is. It is because the I am is false that it wants to continue. Reality need not continue. Knowing itself indestructible, it's indifferent to the destruction of forms and expressions. To strengthen and stabilize the I am, we do all sorts of things, all in vain, for the I am is being rebuilt from moment to moment. So people who have many titles, they think themselves more defining themselves. But the I am is illusory. It's unceasing work, and the only radical solution is to dissolve the separate sense of I am such and such a person once and for good. Being remains but not self-being. So Nisargadatta Maharaj explains that if you want to really understand yourself, do not add any labels to yourself. In fact, remove the labels. I am an accountant, even I'm a female, or anything that you say I am after that, there shouldn't be anything. So keep removing, because those are not the things that you actually are. But if you believe yourself to be them, then you strengthen the sense of I am, so it continues. No ambition is spiritual. All ambitions are for the sake of the I am. So people who have spiritual ambitions, for example, it's just the ego in a spiritual garb, pretending to, to reach for spiritual heights, but actually it wants to strengthen itself. If you want to make real progress, you must give up all idea of personal attainment. You have met many, I don't know this word, anchorites and ascetics, but a fully realized man conscious of his divinity is hard to find. Saints and yogis, by immense efforts and sacrifices, acquire many miraculous powers and can do much good in the way of helping people and inspiring faith, yet it does not make them perfect. It's not a way to reality, but merely an enrichment of the false. So some people consider themselves very spiritual, and they think that by gaining powers that are different from what other people have, they prove their spirituality, but actually they are still stuck in Maya, but they have an enhanced perception of the world, so it's more interesting to live, but actually it's not that they are understanding their real selves. They still keep playing in the Maya. So that's all for now. I hope you found these quotes insightful. Do leave a comment if you have anything to add about the topic of liberation, or about what Nisargadatta Maharaj, about these quotes of Nisargadatta Maharaj. Have a great day. Take care.